There's something most people never talk about, but it's silently destroying marriages behind closed doors: emotional starvation. It's not the absence of physical intimacy that drives a woman to crave something or someone outside of her vows. It's the absence of connection, of attention, of being genuinely seen and emotionally nourished. You see, most married women aren't walking around desperate for sex. They're desperate to be understood, desperate to be noticed without having to scream for it. A woman can cook, clean, mother the children, support a man's dreams, and still go to bed every night feeling utterly invisible. And the moment any man comes along and notices the tiny things her husband has long forgotten, that man becomes dangerously irresistible. She's not crazy, she's not evil, she's not even trying to be disloyal, but women are wired for connection. Not just words, but attuned energy. She wants to feel chosen again, not tolerated, not expected, chosen. The woman who seems cold and closed off isn't like that by nature. She's like that because she's been emotionally neglected for far too long. Her needs have turned into shame, her desires into guilt, and now any flicker of emotional warmth feels like sunlight to a soul that's been sitting in a cold basement. You don't have to touch her to seduce her. All you have to do is see her. Genuinely, most men speak at women. Few speak into them, and even fewer speak from a place that touches her spirit. When she hears, "You don't have to be perfect with me," or "You're allowed to be tired, I see how much you carry," it disarms her armor, it soothes a part of her that's been screaming in silence. What makes it more potent is that these things are so rare in her daily life. Her husband might be loyal, he might be faithful, he might be a good provider, but he's emotionally unavailable. He shows love through actions, never through intimacy of words or presence. He doesn't check in emotionally. He doesn't pause to ask how she's really doing. So when a man comes in and says just one thing that aligns with her unspoken pain, it creates a portal she didn't even know existed. This is where emotional starvation becomes dangerous, because the woman who is emotionally fed will rarely risk her family. But the woman who is running on empty, she's far more vulnerable than she lets on. That's why the most powerful thing you can say to her isn't sexual at all. It's something deeply simple like, "I see you." When you say that and mean it, it penetrates her more than anything physical ever could. It tells her, you're not just a role, you're a woman, you're not just a wife, you're still a person worthy of being desired, cherished, and emotionally held. She's starving, not for another man's body, for the type of connection that reminds her she's still alive. The kind that doesn't judge her for her feelings, but welcomes them. The kind that whispers, "You don't have to keep pretending you're okay." And so, when a man finally says something that speaks to the core of her emotional drought, it's not just a sentence, it's a rescue. And the more emotionally barren she's been, the more powerful that rescue becomes. Her body will follow where her heart is fed. Not because she's disloyal, but because she's human. Because emotional starvation doesn't just break the heart, it numbs the soul. And any warmth, any understanding becomes irresistible. There's a difference between telling a woman what she wants to hear and saying what she's secretly thinking, but never says out loud. When your words mirror her mind, it doesn't feel like seduction. It feels like soul recognition. And that, right there, is what unlocks a woman in ways that no looks, no money, and no status ever can. Women crave to be known, not just complimented, not just praised. They want to feel understood. When a man says something that reflects her inner world, she doesn't resist. It draws her in. It feels like someone finally gets it. Someone finally gets her. You're not just speaking to her ears, you're speaking to her unspoken truths. You're not just describing her beauty, you're describing her burdens, her doubts, her quiet longings, her emotional contradictions. This is where most men get it wrong. They try to impress with surface, level compliments, rehearsed lines, or forced confidence. But the man who speaks into her with attunement, he becomes unforgettable. When you say things like, I know you've had to be strong for everyone, but who's strong for you? You're not just flirting, you're touching something raw. She might look away, she might laugh it off, but inside she feels exposed in a good way, seen, heard, felt. Because the truth is, most women walk around with walls built from years of emotional disappointment. They don't let just anyone in. But when your words match the script that's been playing in her head, when your tone carries both confidence and compassion, she starts to drop those defenses. Not because she wants to break any rules, but because you feel real, you feel rare, you feel like home in a world that keeps asking her to perform. It's in the details, saying things like, I noticed you didn't smile as much today. You good. Hits different than how are you. The first one tells her you're actually paying attention, not just to what she says, but to how she moves. When you can articulate her silence, her body language, her shift in tone, that's when she starts listening to you with her body, not just her ears. There's power in speaking what she doesn't even know she needs to hear. Not manipulative power, emotional power. The kind that forms connection without force. Women aren't attracted to men who just chase them, they're attracted to men who read them. Not in a creepy, overanalyzing way, but in a way that says, I'm not here to conquer you, I'm here to connect with you. And connection is the one thing most women are starving for. So when you say something that resonates with her emotional reality, it's like breathing life into a part of her that's been numb. She doesn't just feel heard, she feels safe. And when a woman feels safe, she opens, mentally, emotionally. Physically, that's why your words matter, but not just any words, the right words, the words that align with her reality. Words that don't flatter, but reflect. That's when you go from just another man in her DM to the voice she replays in her mind at night. Not because you said something slick, but because you said something true. And truth, spoken with care and confidence, is more seductive than anything rehearsed. Because when your words mirror her mind, her desire to be touched doesn't begin in the bedroom. It begins in the silence of feeling deeply known. A woman will never truly give herself to a man until she feels emotionally safe enough to do so. And that safety doesn't come from rules, titles, or marriage certificates. It comes from permission, not the kind you ask for, but the kind she gives herself when your presence makes her feel like she's allowed to want again. You see, women are raised to suppress desire. Society teaches them to be good, to be modest, to behave, to be careful of their image. So even when they crave something deeper, emotionally or physically, they often bury it under layers of guilt and responsibility. Especially if she's married or committed, her mind becomes a battlefield, desire versus duty, passion versus expectations. And most men think the key to unlocking her is persistence or seduction, when really, it's emotional liberation. When a woman feels emotionally starved, she doesn't just want attention, she wants release. But she can't have that until she feels she's in a space where she's not going to be judged, shamed, or labeled for being a woman with desires. That's where the real power lies, not in trying to force her hand, but in creating a space where she gives herself permission to feel again. This doesn't mean sweet talk or manipulation. This means presence. It means listening not just to her words, but to what she's not saying. It means being the man who sees through the smile she wears for the world and says, you don't have to pretend with me. That one sentence can undo years of emotional lockdown. Because now she's not dealing with just a man, she's dealing with a mirror, a safe one. One that doesn't break her image, but reflects her humanity back at her with compassion and strength. When you show her that you see her without asking anything from her, she begins to soften, not because you pushed, but because you waited. And when she starts to feel that emotional softness, her body follows. Women are not machines you press buttons on. They are emotional processors. They have to feel aligned with their actions before they ever initiate anything physical. So when you become the man that makes her feel emotionally free, you become the man her mind circles back to, even if she tells herself it's wrong. Because now she feels like she made the choice. She initiated the connection. She leaned in. That's the difference between seduction and surrender. Seduction is what you do to her. Surrender is what she gives you. And no woman surrenders to a man she doesn't feel emotionally safe with. You don't have to be her husband. You don't have to be her boyfriend. You just have to be the space where she can be honest. The moment she says something to you that she hasn't said to anyone else, even if it's small, you've just become her escape. Not because you were smooth, but because you were solid, still, present. That's when everything changes. That's when she starts texting you first. That's when she opens up more. That's when she tells you about how lonely she's felt, even in a full house. And that's when desire is no longer about lust. It's about freedom. It's about feeling like a woman again. Not someone's wife, not someone's mother, not someone's role. Just a woman who has finally given herself permission to feel, to want, and maybe even to be devoured. And all because you never demanded it. You made it safe for her to choose it. That's real power. That's emotional dominance. Not control, not coercion, but the kind of strength that gives her the freedom to be weak, and want to be weak only for you. It's easy to believe that women are drawn to looks, that if you don't have the jawline, the height, or the six-pack, you don't stand a chance. But here's the truth most men never realize. Energy beats looks every time. A man's presence, his tone, his confidence, his calm, his mystery. These are the things that pull a woman in and make her crave him in ways she can't explain, even to herself. You don't have to be the best looking guy in the room to be the most irresistible. In fact, some of the most average looking men have women fantasizing about them because their energy is magnetic. It's not about perfection. It's about how you make her feel when you walk into a room, when you speak to her, when you don't flinch under pressure, and when your silence says more than someone else's entire script. Women are emotionally intuitive. They feel more than they process. So when your energy communicates certainty, self-control, and relaxed confidence, you immediately stand out. And here's what most men don't understand: this energy doesn't come from trying harder. It comes from being more. Being more present, more grounded, more intentional with your words, more selective with your attention. Women pick up on that instantly. When your energy says, "I'm not chasing you, but I'm not afraid of you either," it creates curiosity. When your energy says, "I know who I am with or without you," it becomes intoxicating. It creates a sense of safety mixed with challenge. Women crave that tension, that push and pull, the man who is solid enough to hold her chaos without absorbing it. The man who listens without trying to fix her, the man whose energy is calm but not passive, strong but not arrogant. Unpredictable but intentional. She doesn't want someone perfect. She wants someone present, a man whose gaze doesn't wander, a man whose voice doesn't try to impress, a man who isn't threatened by her emotions but holds space for them. That energy makes her feel safe. And when a woman feels safe, she unlocks emotionally, mentally, physically. Not because you tried to force her to open, but because your energy made her want to. This is why some men, without saying a word, can walk into a room and shift the atmosphere. They don't need to speak loudly or move aggressively. They have what's called quiet dominance. It's not about intimidation. It's about inner stillness. You can't fake that. You either have it or you don't. And if you don't, you build it by mastering yourself first. Work on how you enter a space, on how you breathe, on how you hold eye contact without trying to win approval. That's the energy she's drawn to. She's not analyzing your cheekbones, she's scanning for emotional power. Is this man grounded? Can he lead? Can he contain me? Does he need me to validate him? These questions aren't spoken, but she's asking them with every second she spends in your presence. When you can sit in silence with a woman and she feels more connected to you than she does with someone who's constantly trying to entertain her, you've tapped into real masculine energy. That's what she remembers, that's what she craves again. Not the guy who had the best outfit, but the guy who made her feel feminine, soft, vulnerable, desired. Energy is what lingers. Looks fade, styles change, bodies age. But energy, that's timeless. It's the imprint you leave without even trying. And once she's felt it, she'll replay it in her mind long after you've left the room.